If we make the right investments, we won't need to live in fear of another COVID. We can build a health system that is ready to stop outbreaks before they go global. Here's how it should work. Epidemiologists will detect suspicious clusters of a disease that could cause a pandemic. A global team of 3,000 disease experts managed by the WHO, called the Germ team, will track the disease and share data and recommendations with governments. Governments and pharmaceutical companies will work together to use factories all over the world to get an unprecedented scale of diagnostics and vaccines very quickly. We'll have an agreed protocol and we'll understand how to share the results globally. Countries and the WHO will work in the best way to allocate these tools and to make sure that we have the logistics and delivery to get them to everyone who needs them. The key to be ready for a potential pandemic is to practice. And so this Germ team will work with each country to do germ games, drills where you see, are you ready? Could you get the diagnostics out? So we're ready to go when we see the outbreak. Diseases are always going to spread among humans, but they don't have to become pandemics. You can read more about this in my new book, How to Prevent the Next Pandemic.
All right, well, he calls it the Germ team, GERM, which stands for Global Epidemic Response and Mobilization Initiative. He says the team would be managed by the World Health Organization. Besides nations who contribute, the top non-government donors to the WHO are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. But interestingly, Gavi's top donor is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So basically, it could be argued that the boss of the WHO is Bill Gates. So essentially, he'd be in charge of preventing future pandemics. Now, Gates says one of the goals of the Germ team is to prepare a plan to stop outbreaks before they go global. Okay, well, how do you stop a virus from spreading? What did we learn during this pandemic? We've learned it's nearly impossible to do, except in one circumstance, which is to do something similar to what China has done: extreme, aggressive, and very authoritarian lockdowns. Now, if you're lucky, you're on an island that can close off its borders to prevent the virus from coming in which case maybe life would go on somewhat as normal, minus travelers, imports, and exports. But most of the world is not an island, and viruses are invisible. So trying to stop one from spreading would require, if it's even possible at all, a total China-style lockdown. Is that the idea?
Welcome, family, to another edition of Stranger Thinking Media. This is Yeshayahu, where we bring you the gospel of Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, to address the problems of a modern world. Today's topic, another pandemic prophecy, Babel, Gates of God, Part 3. Topic 1, the next pandemic. And so here we go again. This is a sensitive topic, so I have to basically scale down on the content, but I did want to get the point across that we are now, I guess you would say, assembly lining the process. So we're not caught off guard during the next pandemic, and that we can actually gauge it and detect it early. And so we'd have, measures in place that we could take and make sure that it doesn't actually become a pandemic, cut it short. And that sounds like a noble idea. And everything here is rational, except that there comes a point in time where you just ask the question, kind of, what did we do before all this technology? There's like 8 billion of us on the planet, so somehow we were able to grow in population without all of this stuff. What I'm saying is, did do we really need all this? I'm not an expert. I'm not going to speculate. Like I say, it sounds like a noble idea. But like most things with human beings, something like this, I just have a fear that it could get out of control. Like the WHO, will it have the power over governments? Will it be able to tell governments, shut your borders or else? These things just get a little scary. So what's the pecking order? Do the sovereign governments of nations have the right to say, that's okay. We'll handle this on our own? Or will they literally have to obey? So, that's like I'm saying, that's my concern. Because that's an awful lot of power in the hands of very few people. And so, we can keep. Do you want to go back to pre COVID? I guess you would say standard model, which was basically we don't know what we're going to do until it gets here, and then we kind of just scramble and do the best we can. That doesn't sound like a good idea. However, do you want to just hand over all power and authority to an organization that you did not vote for? And then you'd have to trust that human beings are going to do the right thing with all that power. Well, there's an old term, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I don't know. I'd rather people, have a choice in the matter of how things are going to go rather than have an organization of unelected officials decide our fate. And I think most people would agree with that. I know during the course of the previous situation that a lot of people lost their heads. They stopped thinking, and anything that was thrown out there, just like either you were confused and you went in one direction with it, or you went in the other direction with it, and then what you ended up with is average everyday people fighting each other. They heard the same thing, but they perceived totally opposite messages. So it creates anarchy sometimes. It creates confusion sometimes. When people say just trust the science, I don't know about that because, I'm considered among scientists. I don't know if I mentioned that, but just because, a scientist tells you something doesn't mean you shouldn't look into it. We have a saying, where I've come up, where I did most of my work, we have an old saying is trust, but verify. And so you should never just close your mind and say, well, so-and-so told me to do this, so I'm just going to do that, because they're the experts. They're human beings, just like everybody else. And like I say, you can put your trust in the hand of man. But I remember a situation in the Bible with King David. He had sinned, and so he had to be punished. But because back then the idea was that if the king sinned, then the nation sinned, sort of. So the king truly was a representative of the nation. And so the Most High told King David he'd give him 3 choices of punishment. And one was famine, one was pestilence, and the other was to fall by the hand of your enemy for a certain time frame. Well, if you know the story of King David, he had never lost a battle, not one. He was undefeated. He was a military man, a mighty man, right? And so when Yah, the Most High, presented him with those 3 choices, being a military man and undefeated, what choice do you think he immediately X'd out? He said, "Oh, let me not fall by the hand of man," because man is unmerciful. He said, "Instead, I would rather put my trust in the hands of the Most High, because he is merciful." And so he chose pestilence. He chose pestilence over military defeat at the hands of his enemies. I thought that was fascinating. And so the pestilence came, and a good chunk of people passed. They suffered, died, and then it ended. And then everybody, was kind of got right in their heads a little bit. What I'm saying is, these things happen, whether you think it happens, if you're spiritually inclined, or if you're a Christian, or just a spiritual type person. Religious is another word. You might think that these are judgments. The scientific community hates that. So I'm not trying to mix the two together here, but what I'm saying is, pestilence has just been a part of life. I don't think we will ever, 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 ever stamp it out. It's just a part of our existence here on this planet. Microorganisms. So, you just have to look at it for what it is and say, is giving up your freedoms worth all of this? I don't know. Like I say, if it can be done without, authoritarianism, if it can be done without, fanaticism, yeah, it's a good thing. The more people you can save, the better. So, there's different ways of looking at it. I know, like, a lot of these medicines are doled out in third world countries because they don't have, the up to date medical care, and there's a lot of reported pestilence among them, and so these organizations go abroad and vaccinate and take care of people who are ill and sick, and that's a noble thing too. But I don't know. I just have a, the human condition is a scary thing. You have good people, you have bad people. You have altruism, and then you have greed. So you don't know sometimes what the motivation is behind things. Me, I just kind of sit back and watch and just follow the rest of that. Just follow the blank, 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 blank. So if you follow the blank, you tend to get to the end of, you get a good conclusion out of it. So I won't go all into that, but let's just hope everybody is on an altruistic plane, and that we are all sitting here looking out for one another, and that we, let's just love one another and try to do the best we can. But I do know this: at the founding of the United States of America, the founding fathers knew the spirit that was in man, and they set up a government. They set up a republic. I know everybody says it's a democracy, but if you understand the Continental Convention, nobody wanted a democracy. In fact, when they came out of it, they came out with a constitutional republic, not a democracy. They did allow few elements of democracy on the very lowest levels. But, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, these were all very rich men, and what they said was, democracy is the absolute worst form of government. It's nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people can take away the rights of 49% of the people. Now think that one through. That's pretty accurate, because if 51% of the people vote for something, no matter how egregious or evil it is, it becomes law in a democracy. And of course, then it becomes a cult of personality. There's always somebody who's very persuasive that he could always get the majority to agree with him, which kind of starts to make him a dictator. And so that's another thing they said. They say democracies always devolve into dictatorship. And so this government here in America was set up to be a constitutional republic. So if you want to know what the difference is very simple. The republic starts out with a Bill of Rights, which means I don't care what vote they hold. I don't care how many people disagree with it. These are the rules. These are your God-given rights that shall not change. So in a republic, basically, you can vote to take away the First Amendment, which is, or the right to free speech. You can vote 99% to 1% to get rid of it. However, because it's in the Bill of Rights, you cannot get rid of it. In other words, it's a God-given right, and we'll work from there. This right is yours, and no amount of voting can take it away from you. So they start out with the Bill of Rights that you just have these rights. Before there's any voting or anything, you have these rights. And they're God-given rights, the right to pursuit of happiness. And, they wanted to establish that. And so that's the difference between a republic and a democracy. In a democracy, 51% of the people could literally vote to execute 49% of the people because they don't agree with them. I mean, they could pass a law stating that. And think about that's the extreme version of it. Think how insane that would be, right? But in a pure democracy, that would literally hold. You disagreed with me. We have the majority. We now don't like you. So you're all going to prison because you disagreed with us, and we passed a law that said if you disagree with the majority, you go to prison. That's democracy. And like Thomas Jefferson said, this saying is associated to him or attributed to him, that 51% of the people could take away 49% of the people, and that democracy is no more than mob rule at the end of the day. And these were rich men. So the thing that drove them was, we do not want the masses to be able to vote to take away our lands and properties, including, we won't go into it, but they were afraid that if they went to pure democracy, that was a possibility that the people could vote. If all of a sudden people just didn't like rich people anymore and they wanted to become kind of socialistic in certain aspects, that we should share the wealth equally, that these rich men who are making these decisions could lose their lands and properties, right? So they voted away from democracy. Now, I don't know why people still call us a democracy, because if you think about it, if Jefferson said, or it's attributed to Jefferson as saying, that democracy is nothing more than mob rule, then when we say we're spreading democracy, it sounds like we're spreading mob rule. So stop calling us a democracy. You see it on TV every day. You see it on the news. You see it on talk shows. These are people who have absolutely no understanding of history. If you understood history, you would know that we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic with a set Bill of Rights outlining your rights before anything else. You can't vote away rights. You can't vote away these God-given rights that the republic set up. So that's the beauty of a republic. And the odd part is, when you really think about it, Rome started out as a republic, right? And even then, it devolved into what? Dictatorship, and later on, empirical aspirations. It became an empire with the Caesars, absolute rulers, taking over. So even in a republic, that could happen. So you got to think these things through. Anyway, I kind of went off on that tangent because I wanted to say this, that whenever you give someone absolute power, it's only like a matter of time before, it goes downhill. So that being said, I just have a little quiz for you. And there's a reason I'm mentioning this quiz. I often wonder about when they say the earth is overpopulated. Now, is that from a, what do you want to call, square foot viewpoint or some other viewpoint? So I'm just looking at the square foot viewpoint here. So the city of Jacksonville, Florida is 747 square miles. This translates to roughly 22 billion square feet. 22 billion square feet. Can 8 billion people fit in Jacksonville? That's the entire population of the earth. Can the entire population of the earth fit in Jacksonville, Florida? Put your answers in the comments. I always like this one. It's kind of fun. And let's look at another example. And now this is just dealing with square footage. Texas is 268,596 square miles. This translates to roughly 7,479 billion. And I left it in billion square feet. That actually is 7.479 trillion. But I want to keep it in billions. So 7,479 billion square feet. So can 8 billion people fit in Texas? Well, put your answers in the comments and just tell me what you think about that. So from a, I guess you would call area or square footage perspective, is the earth actually overpopulated with human beings? So put your answers in the comments. I can't wait to see what you have to say about it. But I find it fascinating myself. Anyway, on that note, family, it's been real. And we're going to end it on that. Just want to say I love you all so much. Thank you so much for continually supporting my content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they'd find it interesting as well. I'm very excited to continue this journey with you. I thank you all for bringing certain stories to my attention and for continually keeping me updated with certain events around the world. I very much appreciate you all, and shout out to the channel members. We're continually growing. Thank you so much. And may everybody have a beautiful and blessed day who's in the body of Messiah Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And I'll see you on the next video. Shalom.